Super Troopers wasn't made to be funny. It was built as a challenge. That is, not with polish or control, but with boredom, bad ideas, and confidence that makes them brave enough to see it through. Behind the syrup, the sirens, and the stupidity, it took a fight to stay in charge. They didn't let movie stars in and were sure of themselves. The joke became more real as they stayed in dress for a while. And when the companies quit, the fans made the sequel happen. You may not know these 12 strange things about Super Troopers, where being stupid was on purpose and dedication carried the whole thing. The first thing is that Super Troopers didn't come from a clean comic idea. It came from the fear you feel when you see a border booth. In the beginning, Broken Lizard was just a group of friends taking road trips to Canada, and the drives weren't always safe. So, every crossing brought the same scary thought. What if the police can? They know we're high, but instead of catching us, they choose to play with us? That fear turned into a running joke. After that, it turned into a story engine. Then they had a crazy moment in real life, and they didn't even have to fight. The group says that the beginning of that famous scene was based on a real event that happened at the US-Canada border involving crew members. There were drugs in the car. Things stopped for good. Everyone's thoughts began to race. When border officials found a joint and told them to leave, one passenger didn't hide anything, throw anything away, or think. He ate it. There was more than one joint in the bag. It was meant for a group. The kind of move you only make when you're scared and your reflexes to stay alive take over. You can't play it cool after that. There are only results. He was said to have been missing for 2 days after that. That's why the beginning hits so hard. It doesn't feel like a laugh. It's a familiar kind of fear. The joke isn't funny or drug-related. The joke is that when the brain is under a lot of stress, it watches itself make the worst choice possible while the person in charge stands there calmly and patiently holding all the power. Super Troopers may seem silly, but it's based on a true story. There are times when comedy just happens. It's what you say after you get through it. Second, Super Troopers sounds like a bunch of friends having fun with a camera. But it wasn't a sitcom for a long time. The show was struggling to stay alive. After more than 20 drafts, the story is finally ready to be made into a movie. Not as messy as Height. Each scene is tense because the writing makes it seem like the actors are always trying to avoid failing by not letting the audience breathe. In the beginning, Broken Lizard kept going back and forth between different versions, changing the tone, looking for new angles, and even flirting with a retro humor vibe. Things always went the same way when they got close. Financing stopped, and momentum fell down. The project was put back on hold. And limbo feels different when you're not a studio team getting paid. It hits when you're broke, worn out, and seeing your one chance slip away. So, instead of making the writing perfect, they started using it as a weapon. They made a rule that seems crazy until you see the movie. Every 6 seconds, a joke. That became the plan to stay alive. Rewrites weren't meant to make things easier to understand. They were making the beat tighter until it felt like a machine. Lots of punchlines. Early callbacks set up like traps. Scenes were remade so that the jokes were no longer the point. They were the building, and it cost a lot. No one was taking a victory lap when the script was finally locked. They were wiped out because the story of the almost breakup wasn't very exciting. It was how the room felt. You don't argue about jokes when you've written something that many times. A fight starts over whether the group makes it to the end. This is why the movie seems so wild and alive. It wasn't easy to make. It was faked under so much stress that the people who wrote it almost broke. Third, once Broken Lizard had a story they were sure would work, the rejection didn't sound so bad. It made more noise. That's fine. But because each buyer saw the same thing and tried to move it in a different way. Fox was the first to jump in, but they didn't go for screens. In the jokes, pranks, and recurring characters, they saw TV, cheap sets, jokes that were done over and over, and shows that went on forever. The pitch was to basically make this into a TV show. Broken Lizard even stuck with it long enough to write a pilot to show that they could make the idea work in that form. There was no action. Nothing but time ran out, no green light, no speed. The response became even stranger when Miramax came into the picture. The people in charge didn't know what they were seeing. There was neither a clear yes nor a clear no. It sounds more like confusion mixed with gut. The group had a moment at Sundance that wasn't about rhythm or notes. It had to do with sight. A get-together at a bar. A sighting in public. The kind of move that made people in the business think, these guys might be real. And then they were. Universal made the deal that was most like a real movie deal. They were ready to give Broken Lizard the money it needed, which was about $5. $5 million. It must have felt like the nightmare was ending for a split second. But the check came with a blade, new writers, a new director, and changes to smooth out the rough spots. The result was a safer version that looked more like a normal studio comedy than a cult bomb waiting to happen. That deal that gets your movie made but kills the things that made it yours. Broken Lizard said no. It was almost like the movie was never made because saying no costs a lot when you're broke and have been told yes a dozen times with strings attached. Still, they held their ground. It's not that they didn't like TV. They knew it could work sometimes. They wouldn't let Super Troopers become a watered-down show that would go on forever and mean nothing. And this is what that choice really meant. It was all over after the last real offer. There were no more safety nets, studios to chase, or second chances. It would take someone willing to pay for the whole thing, which is something Hollywood almost never does, for Super Troopers to happen at all. The fourth thing is that Super Troopers wasn't saved by a company. Someone helped save it. J. Chandrasekhar decided to read a script written by a friend's father after years of rewrites and shut doors. Just being polite. There are no managers, pitches, or Hollywood smoke. After that, Jay gave that man the Troopers script. And instead of what every executive had done, which was to tear it apart, weaken it, and demand stars, the guy did something that was almost shocking. He laughed. He got it. He wanted it made just the way it was. He wasn't into movies because he was a Wall Street investment banker who had just retired. He wasn't trying to make the joke funny. The check was written because he wanted to help it stay alive. One backer gave about $1 to pay for the whole movie. 25. It was $25 million, so there was no safety net. It failed very badly if it did. Broken Lizard is putting their future on the answer of one person. There is no studio backup or second funding round. Then the movie came out. The person who put money in got it back. When it comes to weird cop comedies with no stars, this is a very rare happy finish in independent films. Now comes the part that seems like it should be in the movie. The title wasn't made in a meeting about marketing. It was from a mom. When one of the guys talked about the project at home, his mother put it up in a way that seemed natural. I see, you're making a movie about Super Troopers. That was it. Clean, stick, and hard to forget. Parents outside of the school system paid for and named a movie that made fun of authority. So that's exactly why it lived. Super Troopers had every reason to be afraid, which is number 5. Small budget, no leverage, and no safety net for the company. It would have been clear what to do. Give it a well-known name, a director with a track record, and sand down the strange parts until it looked like a normal studio comedy. That's what the studios pushed for. As Broken Lizard chased roughly $5,500,000, interest kept coming in with poison in it. Ben Affleck, who was very hot at the time, was one of the most popular choices. It was always the same message, even when it wasn't Affleck. Change the cast. Switch who is in charge. Get it ready to sell. Protect it. Broken Lizard wouldn't move. Their rule could not be changed. J. Chandrasekhar would direct it, and they would both be in it. Taking away the people who made the voice wouldn't make the movie better. You change it. They also knew that a replacement Super Troopers might get money and even be launched, but it would fail as soon as it got there. Again and again, they chose the harder way. It was also that stubbornness that shaped casting. They didn't want a well-known actor to play Captain O'Hagan. They wanted an old-school comedian. They tried to get Bill Murray's attention and even made him an offer of about $100,000. It did not happen. There wasn't a big story or a surprise. It was just another door that wouldn't open. The movie didn't fall apart because of those no's, though. It got more pointed. Because when you stop trying to be popular, you have to make something stronger than fame. A world, a tone, and a beat will only work if everyone sticks to the same strange little truth. Because of this, the movie could still use Linda Carter, the original Wonder Woman, as Governor Jessene as a surprise, not as a last-ditch effort, but as a wink. A star did not save Super Troopers. The people who wouldn't give it up saved it. Sixth, Super Troopers feels free, careless, and a little out of control because that's how it was made. They didn't have much money to shoot, so they used regular roads as Vermont routes and real pull-offs as checkpoints around Rockefeller State Park Preserve in Pleasantville, New York. There was no set safety or controlled bubble. There was just a group of people trying to steal a movie from real life without real life fighting back. It did happen sometimes. The bulletproof prison scene was shot close to a real prison, and quickly the mood changed from funny to hostile. During takes, prisoners yelled at the cast, especially Steve Lemmy. It was rude, loud, and personal, and you can't just turn it away. There is real strain under the jokes. The maple syrup scene is another great example of Broken Lizards acting in the most stupid way possible to solve a problem. The first plan was to have iced tea. When they filmed it, it looked fake and thin, so they moved to real maple syrup. Multiple takes, but no smart replacement. It's not acting that makes you feel bad when you watch it. To stay alive. It was planned confusion even in the safer parts. It wasn't soap that was used in the joke. Because Brian Cox has diabetes, the white chocolate was made without sugar, and he does eat it. That's not a joke with props. That is a job for logistics. After that, they did something that seems almost too real. One of the meanest comments in the movie, Kevin Heffernan. His real parents were the ones he was yelling at while an older couple was stuck in their car. They said they would help. They didn't think it would be that bad. The details were a strange mix of being fake and painfully real. The beards were fake. It wasn't the shame. And they didn't hire Hollywood extras when they needed people in the background. They called friends, classmates, grads, and anyone else who could commit to coming. That's why the movie is so exciting. It didn't get polished up to cult level. It was thrown together one awkward take at a time. Seventh, Super Troopers had a few times when the joke stopped being funny, even though the whole movie was about breaking the rules. Traffic control broke down during a shoot on the side of the road, and cars kept going right through the frame, ruining takes. Director Jay Chandrasekhar made a bad choice when he told Kevin Heffernan to fix the scene instead of stopping it. So, Heffernan got out of the car in full soldier gear and began to stop traffic by hand. Nothing legal, not even a badge, lets you do it. They were sure of themselves and wore a costume that looked serious enough to make people follow them. It gets easy to step over the line after the first time. Steve Lemmy drove around in a cop uniform on public roads, flashing his lights at real drivers because he thought no one would call him out on it. It got really crazy when Eric Stohansky took over. He was caught going 100 miles per hour in a police car whose horn was on by accident. He had to talk quickly and be very brave when a real police officer pulled him over, but he got away without any trouble. There was no permission or safety net. The players just borrowed the power of the uniform and hoped everyone would go along with them. The universe gave the story its best ending years later. Lemmy was pulled over again for really going too fast. The police officer smiled and skipped the ticket because he knew him from Super Troopers. I was pulled over going 120 miles per hour, and the officer looked at me and got mad. He asked, "Do you have any idea how fast Super Troopers goes?" I replied, "You got me." He then said, "Oh my God, you guys are hilarious." I replied, "All right." He then replied, "All right." I replied, "All right. I think I'm going to let you off with a warning on this one. It's not because Super Troopers is my favorite movie of all time. It's not because it was allowed. The movie had already turned the whole thing into a shared joke, a comedy about cops who break the rules. It became famous enough that Real Cops started quoting it back. Number 8. One of the strangest weapons Super Troopers ever used wasn't a joke, it was Brian Cox. In the late 1990s, Cox had a very specific Hollywood shape. That reputation paid the bills, but it also kept him in a cage. So, this is the part that still feels backwards. Broken Lizard didn't find Brian Cox. Cox went after them. According to director Jay Chandrasekhar, Cox reached out because he was tired of being the dark side in every story and he wasn't asking for a cute little comedy detour. He wanted to take the full plunge. Cox loved broad comedy, especially Jerry Lewis's willingness to look stupid on purpose and act like it was important. So, Broken Lizard took the leap. And Cox didn't play Captain O'Hagan like a guest star doing the group a favor. He played him like a Shakespearean tyrant stuck in a stoner movie. Every insult hits harder because it comes from a man who sounds like he's not winking, he's convinced, which is why the lines became famous. For Cox, it was a jailbreak, proof that he could be loud, stupid, angry, and funny without losing his authority. For the movie, it was the anchor that made the chaos feel real. Sometimes the best casting isn't luck, it's an actor finally choosing freedom. Number 9. Casting Super Troopers wasn't about polish, it was about fearlessness. Broken Lizard needed someone who could match the movie's crazy rhythm and make chaos feel natural. That's how Marissa Coughlan got Ursula. In her audition, she didn't just read the scene and smile politely, she detonated it. Out of the blue, she did a dead-on Linda Blair impression from The Exorcist. No warm-up, no warning, just. It worked. According to J. Chandrasekhar, it wasn't just funny, it was a signal. She got the tone. Super Troopers depends on performers who are willing to go beyond comfort and normal and into that risky space where the joke could either kill or become legendary. The best part is that Broken Lizard already knew her from Teaching Mrs. Tingle, where she did the same impression. When she brought it back in the audition, sharper and louder, it felt like a calling card, a message that said, "I'm not here to play it safe." Ursula works in the movie because of that energy. She's not just a scheduler, she's in tune with the chaos. She's flirty, cruel, playful, and just weird enough to fit in. She got the part by showing that when the time comes, you go all the way. Number 10. By the time Super Troopers hit theaters, it looked like a confident, locked-in comedy that knew exactly what it was doing. But behind the curtain, the movie was still being argued into existence. The ending, was not the first ending. The theatrical version, where the troopers crawl back into the world as undercover delivery guys, and the stoners from the opening scene turn out to be cops, only survived because test audiences forced the issue. Broken Lizard filmed other finales, and some of them were meaner. One alternate ending put the troopers in a meat packing plant. Same basic rhythm, same we are still cops reveal, but with a grimy